You've felt it, haven't you? That heavy feeling when you realize you notice things what others don't. The nervous shift in someone's eyes, the crack in their voice, the sadness behind someone's bright face. Most people never stop to see it, but you do. You see through the act. You see through the mask. And here's the paradox. The world tells you perception is power, knowledge is strength. But Carl Jung warned that seeing too clearly is not always a gift. Sometimes, it's a curse. Because once you learn to see through the illusions that comfort everyone else, you can never unsee them. And that clarity, your clarity, puts you in danger. Think about it. When you sense the pain behind laughter, when you notice the insecurity behind confidence, when you hear the lie even before it's spoken, do people thank you for it? No. They shrink. They look away. They accuse you of being too intense, too suspicious, too much. Your very presence unsettles them because you reflect back what they spend their lives running from. This is what Jung called dangerous perception, the ability to see what others cannot or will not see. And the truth is brutal. People who carry this rare form of perception often end up exhausted, alienated, and misunderstood. Not because they're broken, but because the world is not built for eyes that see this clearly. But here's the secret Jung also revealed. This danger isn't random. It has a pattern, a logic. There are specific psychological risks that threaten the perceptive individual from the inside. And there are social consequences, the backlash of others, when your clarity cuts too deep. Ignore these, and perception will drain you, isolate you, and even destroy you. But face them, integrate them, then what once felt like a curse becomes the beginning of your true strength. Because the world doesn't need more people who accept illusions. It needs the few who can see through them. So the question is this: are you ready to confront the price of perception? The first danger of seeing too much isn't out there. It's in here, inside your own mind. Because when you notice everything, you don't just carry your own thoughts, you carry everyone else's too. Their fear, their insecurity, their unspoken desperation. It's like walking into a crowded room and feeling 10 different storms strike you at once. Most people drift through those storms unaware, but you drown in the noise. And the worst part, you can't switch it off. You watch someone talk about their big promotion, and you see the compromise that hollowed them out to get it. You hear laughter echoing at a dinner table, and you sense the loneliness hiding beneath the smiles. You see the argument behind the polite conversation, the breakup behind the affectionate touch. Their words run on the surface, but your perception cuts straight into the undercurrent. At first, you think this is your superpower, but over time it becomes exhaustion. Because every room you walk into asks more of you than it does of anyone else. You're not just listening, you're absorbing. You're not just present, you're translating what no one else will admit. And it's draining. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He warned that the danger isn't in seeing, it's in how that sight fragments you. Because to survive, you start breaking yourself apart. There's the professional you, the one who hides your intensity just to keep your job. There's the social you, the one who laughs at small talk even though it feels like nails on glass. There's the family you, the one who plays the role of provider, protector, dependable son, even when you're suffocating inside. Each role is a mask. Each mask is a betrayal, and every time you wear one, your true self retreats a little further into the shadows, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you've built an entire life out of fragments, a life where everyone sees a piece of you, but no one sees you. And that's when the isolation sets in, because how do you explain this to anyone else? How do you tell someone that small talk feels like starvation, that shallow friendships leave you emptier than being alone? That you'd rather sit in silence than waste energy on conversations that never touch the soul. Most people can't understand that hunger. They don't even feel it. They're content with the surface, the illusion, the easy comfort of distraction. But you can't be content, not when you see the cracks in every illusion. And so you withdraw, not because you're antisocial, but because you're starving for depth in a world built on surfaces. You crave a connection where masks fall away, where truth replaces performance, where words don't just skim the surface, but dive straight into the marrow of existence. This is what Jung called existential tension, too awake to sleep, too human to transcend. suspended between worlds. You can't unsee the truth, but you can't fully live in it either. And beneath it all lies the wound. Maybe it began in childhood. Maybe you were the kid who felt everything too deeply. The one who noticed when your parents were pretending everything was fine. The one who couldn't pretend when pretending was the only rule. That sensitivity marked you. It made you different. Too much, too sensitive, too intense. And so piece by piece, you learned to hide it, to numb it, to fragment yourself, just to survive. But Jung saw the deeper truth. That wound, the wound of seeing too much, isn't your weakness, it's the seed of your gift. Because the very sensitivity that isolated you is the same sensitivity that awakens you. The wound taught you to see in the dark, to notice what others miss, to carry a depth that few will ever know. And this is where the inner struggle sharpens into its cruelest edge. Because your greatest gift is also your greatest risk. Left unintegrated, it will exhaust you, fragment you, and drown you in isolation. But if you learn to face it, that wound becomes your compass, the scar becomes your teacher, and the pain becomes the doorway into clarity. The danger of perception isn't that you see too much, it's that you forget how to live with what you see. If the inner struggle of seeing too much feels heavy, the outer struggle is even more brutal. Because the moment you carry perception into the world, you stop being just another face in the crowd. You become a mirror, and mirrors terrify people. Why? Because most people spend their lives building masks, identities carefully designed to keep their shadows hidden. They pretend to be confident, successful, happy, or secure. They cling to the stories they tell themselves. And then you walk in. Without saying a word, you see through them. You notice the fear beneath the bravado, the cracks beneath the smile. That alone is enough to make you dangerous. Carl Jung described this as shadow projection. When people glimpse their hidden flaws reflected in you, they can't face them. The unconscious refuses to admit its own darkness. So instead, it attacks the mirror. It attacks you. Think about the last time you gently pointed out a truth others didn't want to hear. Maybe you noticed a friend's unhappiness in their perfect relationship. Maybe you asked a question that revealed a problem your team had been ignoring at work. Did people thank you for your clarity? Or did they accuse you of being negative? Did they roll their eyes and say you were overthinking? That's the paradox. You don't create the darkness, you just see it. But when you reveal it, others can't handle the reflection, and so they project their discomfort onto you. You're too intense. You make everything complicated. Why can't you just be normal? These are the weapons society uses to keep its illusions intact. And it doesn't stop at words. The backlash takes many forms. In workplaces, perceptive individuals are quietly pushed aside, branded as troublemakers for asking the questions no one else dares to ask. In families, they're accused of being ungrateful or difficult because they won't go along with the performance everyone else relies on. In friendships, they're avoided because being around them feels like exposure. This is why Jung warned that perception isolates, not because you want to be alone, but because people exile the ones who see too clearly. You didn't choose to be different. You didn't choose to notice the cracks. But by noticing, you disrupt the fragile balance everyone else depends on. And society has an unconscious rule: protect the illusion at all costs. So the group will do whatever it takes to preserve its shared story. If that means scapegoating the one who sees through it, so be it. You become the villain in other people's narratives, not because you're wrong, but because you're right too soon. That's the outer danger of dangerous perception. It doesn't just drain you from the inside, it provokes attack from the outside. It makes you the lightning rod for everyone else's shadow. But here's the deeper truth. This backlash isn't personal, it's structural. So when you feel misunderstood, excluded, or even punished for your clarity, understand this. It's not because you were flawed, it's because your presence forces others to confront truths they're desperate to avoid. You are a disruption to their unconscious equilibrium. And this raises the most painful question of all. How do you live in a world that doesn't want you to see? Dangerous perception doesn't just live in theory or in Jung's notebooks. It shows up in the messy corners of everyday life, where masks aren't just optional, they're required for survival. Start with the workplace. Every office runs on illusion. The illusion of confident leaders, loyal employees, unshakable teams. But you see what others can't. You sense when a boss's confidence is really insecurity dressed up in a suit. You pick up on the tension beneath polite meetings, the resentments simmering just under the surface. Everyone else nods, smiles, and plays along. You feel the lie in the room like static crawling across your skin. And this is the trap, because if you speak up, you're branded negative. If you stay silent, the truth eats at you. Either way, you're paying a price for seeing too clearly. Now look at relationships. Most couples live inside unspoken contracts. Don't mention the growing distance. Don't name the silent resentment. Don't point to the empty space where intimacy used to live. But you notice it instantly. A hesitation before a kiss. A laugh that doesn't quite reach the eyes. A warmth that's practiced but not real. You see the end before they're willing to admit there's even a problem. And if you dare to voice it, suddenly you're accused of being paranoid, insecure, or overanalyzing, when in reality, you just saw what they were afraid to feel. Then there's family. Families are masters of performance. The selfless father, the strong brother, the loyal provider, roles passed down like inherited scripts, but you can't unsee the cracks. You know when a father's silence is really despair. You recognize when the responsible son is carrying everyone's burdens but slowly breaking under the weight. And here, your perception doesn't just make you an outsider. It makes you the one who threatens the family story. Because the moment you stop playing your role, the entire act begins to fall apart. And finally, the digital stage. Social media is the most elaborate mask factory in human history. Perfect smiles, curated vacations, filtered strength. Everyone performing a life that looks whole but feels empty. And you scroll and you see right through it. The insecurity behind the gym selfies, the loneliness behind the smiling couple photos, the desperation behind the motivational quotes. To everyone else, it's entertainment. To you, it's a reminder of just how fragile the illusion really is. This is the reality of dangerous perception in the modern world. You're not just fighting your own exhaustion. You're not just resisting the backlash of others. You're navigating entire systems, workplaces, families, relationships, and digital platforms that depend on illusion to function. And that's why you often feel like you don't belong anywhere. Because every space you enter asks you to betray your clarity just to keep the peace. But here's the paradox Jung uncovered. The very clarity that threatens these systems is also what the world desperately needs. Workplaces collapse under leaders who live in denial. Relationships rot when truth is buried. Families fracture when roles suffocate reality. And social media feeds the loneliness it was supposed to cure. So the question becomes sharper. Do you dim your perception to fit into a world of masks? Or do you risk everything to hold on to the truth you see? Jung understood that rare perception does not come without a cost. He called it dangerous not to dramatize it, but because he saw the patterns in those who carried it. If you see too clearly, you walk through three dangers, subtle and relentless forces that shape your life whether you notice them or not. The first is disruption. Every group, every family, every culture survives on fragile agreements. We agree not to mention what hurts. We agree to protect appearances. We agree to maintain illusions, because illusions keep the system alive. But the moment you see too much, you threaten that order. Your presence alone unsettles the balance, because you don't participate in the collective lie. And the group knows it, even if unconsciously. That is why tension follows you into rooms, why resistance greets your words. You are not trying to destroy the order, but the order feels destroyed when you refuse to play along. The second danger is isolation. At first, solitude feels like choice. You tell yourself you prefer silence, that you would rather walk alone than sit in shallow company. But over time, it becomes something darker. Jung described this as the problem of the superior function. The very gift that sets you apart also cuts you off. You begin to live as an island of awareness in an ocean of unconsciousness. And the loneliness is not just social, it is existential. You wonder if you even belong to the same world as everyone else, if you were born in the wrong era, if there is any place where the language of your depth will be understood. And then comes the third danger, the most invisible of them all. dissolution. Because when you see too much, you don't only notice, you absorb. You carry other people's grief as if it were your own. You wake up heavy with anxieties that never belong to you. You sit across from someone in pain, and their sorrow seeps into your bones. Jung called this participation mystique, a collapse of boundaries where the self bleeds into the collective. It feels like empathy, but unchecked, you no longer know where you end and others begin. You dissolve into the very unconscious you were trying to understand. This is why Jung's warning was so severe. To see what others don't is to live in constant tension between disruption, isolation, and dissolution. And unless you learn how to carry perception wisely, the weight of it will eventually crush you. But Jung also believed there was a way forward. He called it individuation, a process of integrating what you see without losing yourself to it, a path that transforms dangerous perception from a curse into clarity, from a burden into a gift. And that is where the real turning point begins. Jung never believed the answer was to shut your eyes. He knew perception couldn't be undone. Once you see the cracks in the illusion, you can never go back to pretending it's whole. The challenge then is not to see less, but to learn how to live with what you see. He called this process individuation, and it begins with recognition. The first step is to separate what belongs to you from what belongs to others. Because when you're highly perceptive, you don't just notice, you absorb. You carry emotions that aren't yours until you can no longer tell the difference. Recognition means drawing that line again. It means learning to say, this sadness isn't mine, this anger isn't mine, this fear isn't mine. It sounds simple, but it is survival. Without it, you dissolve into everyone else's chaos. With it, you begin to reclaim your center. The next step is shadow integration. Jung warned that those who see other people's shadows most clearly often stumble because they refuse to face their own. The more you deny your own capacity for weakness, cruelty, or deception, the more disturbed you become by those same qualities in others. Integration means admitting that you contain everything you see: the liar, the coward, the manipulator, the fool. Owning that proof doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole. And then comes conscious participation, the ability to engage with the collective without being swallowed by it. This doesn't mean hiding your perception, nor does it mean preaching it like a prophet desperate to be heard. It means choosing when and how to reveal what you see, knowing not everyone is ready. It means developing what Jung called psychological containers, the strength to hold what others are feeling without mistaking it for your own. It means learning to stand in a room full of tension, to sense the unspoken conflicts, and still remain rooted in yourself. This is individuation, not a retreat from the world, but a deeper entry into it. Not isolation, but presence. Not dimming your vision, but carrying it without breaking under the weight. And here lies the turning point. Dangerous perception can destroy you if you resist it, fragment you if you deny it, dissolve you if you can't contain it. But when you walk the path of individuation, that same perception becomes clarity. It becomes wisdom. It becomes the very thing that protects you instead of consuming you. Jung's warning was clear, but so was his invitation. The danger of seeing what others don't is real, but so is the possibility of becoming the kind of person who can live with that sight and even use it as medicine for a world drowning in illusions. The path of individuation isn't about turning down your perception. It's about turning it into strength. Because once you stop fighting the gift, once you learn to hold it without being consumed, something remarkable happens. What once felt like a curse begins to reveal itself as your greatest contribution. Jung believed that every individual who learns to carry dangerous perception becomes more than just themselves. They become a bridge, a link between what is hidden and what must eventually be seen, a translator between the unconscious and the conscious, between the illusions people cling to and the truths they secretly long for. Think about it. Every major step forward in human understanding began with someone who refused to accept appearances. Revolutions were born in the minds of those who couldn't unsee the cracks in the old order. Every shift in consciousness began with an individual who carried perception too heavy for the times they lived in. That is the paradox of your sight. It makes you dangerous to the illusions that surround you, but it also makes you necessary to the evolution of what comes next. This is where integration deepens into transformation. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it is radar. It is the reason you sense deception before others do. It is the reason you feel the emotional weather of a room before anyone speaks. It is the reason you can look at a life that seems perfect on the outside and know instantly what is rotting within. When you stop resenting that ability and start refining it, perception stops being poison and starts becoming medicine. But here is the critical shift. Medicine only works when it is given wisely. If you wield your sight recklessly, people will reject it. If you carry it arrogantly, it becomes weaponized. Integration demands humility, the ability to see without forcing, to reflect without condemning, to reveal without tearing apart. Jung called this conscious service, using what you see not to prove yourself right, but to help others wake slowly, at their own pace. And in this service, you find purpose. Not the shallow purpose of status or recognition, but the deeper kind. The purpose of embodying authenticity in a world addicted to masks. The purpose of carrying light into spaces still trapped in shadow. The purpose of reminding others that truth exists even when it terrifies them. This is the transformation Jung hinted at. When dangerous perception is integrated, it doesn't just save you, it saves others. It becomes cultural medicine in a society starving for honesty. It becomes the antidote to illusions that are collapsing under their own weight. And so, the choice returns to you. Will you run from your perception and let it consume you in silence? Or will you integrate it, carry it, and use it to serve a world that cannot yet see what you see? So here we are. You can keep hiding, keep pretending you're ordinary, keep dimming your clarity so no one else feels uncomfortable. But you already know where that road leads, to fragmentation, to silence, to a lifetime of betraying the very gift that makes you who you are. Or you can choose clarity. You can own the perception that has always set you apart. You can stand in the tension, carry the truth, and use it not to destroy, but to awaken. If you've made it to the end, it isn't by accident. Videos like this don't appear randomly. They find the ones who are ready to stop shrinking, ready to stop pretending, ready to step into the clarity they've been carrying all along. This is your invitation, to stand among the few who refuse to dim their sight, the ones who choose depth over distraction, truth over comfort, authenticity over approval. If that's you, don't wait. Subscribe now, because this is just the beginning. Every week we go deeper into Jung's warnings, into the illusions that bind us, into the truths that set us free. Hit the bell too, because when you carry this level of perception, you need reminders that you're not alone, not broken, not too much. You need a community that speaks your language. And here's your first step. Write 3 words in the comments. I choose clarity. Let it be your declaration, your initiation, your first act of visibility. Watch how many others respond. See how many people have been carrying the same weight you thought was yours alone. Not everyone will understand. Don't share this with everyone. Share it with the one person you know is struggling with their intensity. The one who thinks they're broken because they can't live on the surface. The one who needs to know their difference is their gift. Because in a world addicted to masks, your clarity is not just your liberation. It is the medicine of a future that cannot heal without you.